Hello, my friends. Please excuse me, but to save time, I will read the text. Every word in it has its meaning. I am Alexander Semyonov, president of the Association Ecology of the Unknown, which has been operating for more than 30 years. I am also a professor and a presidium member of the Academy of Geopolitical Problems. For 45 years, I have been in the field of studying of the so-called anomalous phenomena, including the UFO phenomenon. I personally know almost all scientists and specialists and researchers who created the foundations of Russian ufology and have made their contribution to the ufology worldwide. For about 15 years, while working in the group of the Soviet pioneer of ufology, Felix Yurievich Zigel, I, just like the most researchers, believed that the more observational data about UFOs is there, and the more reliable the witnesses of their appearance are, the sooner the state authorities will stop covering up and classifying information about them. The faster the full-scale scientific study of the phenomenon will begin, and the media will stop relegating its study to the level of simple curiosity. And that's when we will finally know the nature of the UFO phenomenon, probably related to its extraterrestrial origin. I, as well as numerous Russian and foreign researchers, hoped that the official scientific recognition of UFOs will encourage the advancement of humanity into the universe, will facilitate contact with the brothers in consciousness, as well as it will expand our knowledge of the world. But that didn't happen. Moreover, the official scientific world resolutely distanced itself from the consideration of the problem, marking it as pseudo-scientific. State structures have taken a vow of silence, and the media continued to cover the problem in a superficial, vulgar way. And this is despite the fact that over decades, hundreds of serious informal associations in many countries of the world gathered a raise of thousands, hundreds of thousands of cases of UFO sightings. In addition, they periodically began to feed the public with declassified, though smeared, archives of UFO sightings, the collection of which has long been conducted in a closed mode by some government agencies in a number of countries. However, the methods of mathematical statistics, correlative and regression analyses more than 30 years ago allowed to identify several features of the UFO phenomenon that objectively talk about a set of properties inherent only to it, the same for different regions of the world. However, based on all the accumulated archives and investigations conducted, it is still impossible to say anything unambiguously certain about the nature of UFOs in scientific terms, except for one thing: the phenomenon objectively exists. The question is not about the reality of the existence and presence of the UFO phenomenon on Earth. It's about how we, humanity, should respond to it correctly. UFOs are associated with the activities of extraterrestrial civilizations. This is the most obvious version. Clarifying considerations is not so important right now. Whether UFOs are messengers from other planets or from other space-time dimensions, other worlds, frequencies, it doesn't matter. It seems that it would be more correct now to refer to them as the otherworlders. From the UFO archives, it follows that there are several other-world civilizations. The description of the type and properties of their representatives has essentially a literary tone to it. But it is important that these descriptions, based on the so-called contact stories, have one thing in common. Among the other-worlders, there is no one who would relate to us in a hostile or aggressive manner. There are descriptions of an indifferent attitude to people. There is neutral, there is good attitude, but there is no hostile or aggressive one. And for all the time of communication with the otherworlders, of the most different contactees, there were no cases of presentation to Earth civilization of any ultimatum requirements, terms, not a single bit of hostility or aggressiveness was shown by the other worlders. There is also no recorded case of intentional, purposeful infliction of harm to people by other worlders. Cases of UFO impact on the equipment took place most often as a response to the actions of people. In 1977, the 33rd UN General Assembly considered EQFON memorandum on these impacts. But in the future, with an objective study of such cases, it became clear that the injured witnesses, often military, unknowingly found themselves in the zones of action of force and other fields inherent in UFOs and unwittingly violated the unknown to Earthlings safety rules for contacts with UFOs. UFOs have not provoked a single military conflict. Their presence near military or secret facilities has the nature of supervision, but does not indicate in any way that their intentions are dangerous for personnel and equipment. There were cases when namely the presence of UFOs in the areas of basing of strategic strike systems zeroed out the probability of combat launches of nuclear missiles. We should also not forget that any peculiarities of the behavior of other subjects, for example animals, we humans perceive only through the prism of our own established views, beliefs and inclinations, including those of aggressiveness, hostility, evil, good, fear, etc. There is no reason to believe that UFOs and representatives of extraterrestrial civilizations are hostile or aggressive in relation to the Earthlings. Manifestations of the UFO phenomenon are exclusively peaceful in nature. So here we are. The UFO phenomenon that was not taken seriously for 70 years, that has not become an important subject of study of the world science, the phenomenon which they abused for filming thrillers about bad aliens, now turned out to be in demand, moreover, at the official level of US Congress. It can be employed when playing, according to the expression of Werner von Braun, of the last card, that is, for implementation of the fourth stage of coming to the New World Order. According to the major spending bill signed by the President of the United States on December 27, 2020, the Minister of Defense and the Director of National Intelligence have to report until June 2021 to the Committees of Congress on Intelligence and Armed Forces what their agencies know about UFOs. The Pentagon must provide a report on unidentified aerial objects and phenomena, which should contain a detailed analysis of UFO data collected by the Department of Navy Intelligence, by the Task Force on Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, and the FBI. The Pentagon must identify any potential threats to national security emanating from UFOs and assess whether China or Russia could be behind such activities. The report must be public, but it may contain secret data. Such formulation of the President's instructions makes the following steps possible. US military and intelligence services confirm the presence of a whole spectrum of identified potential threats from UFOs. After all, for many decades, taxpayers' money from the US budget was spent to finance the ongoing, unacknowledged special access projects. World mass media starts a massive brainwashing of the population of the planet. A simulation of an alien invasion takes place. UFOs are declared enemies of humanity. US military-industrial complex receives contracts for the development and production of new weapon systems to compensate for UFO threats. Allies countries join the US defense program, providing their financial, technical, military, territorial resources, raw materials, political and other resources. Russia, China, and other non-aligned countries are declared traitors to humanity. Against them, strict political, economic, informational, military, space, and other sanctions are introduced. A global operational headquarters is created for the reflection of UFO threats. A sole commander of the planet is elected. The role of the UN is being reviewed and virtually reset. The authority is exercised by the managers of the deep state. For serving the elite, a moderately well-fed computer concentration camp is created out of the population. The launch of weapon systems into space begins. Activities of the most nations of the planet are controlled under the threat of the use of weapons from outer space. The probability of a global military conflict reaches its limit. What does the UFO phenomenon have to do with all this? Absolutely nothing. They just needed a convenient excuse. And now, the most important thing. In the Soviet Union, there has been started, and then continued and modernized, the methodology for making contact with representatives of, let's say, supreme intelligent powers of the cosmos. The task was set to achieve bilateral, meaningful communication with them. The goal was not to get some momentary situational hints or new technologies, but to gain knowledge of the cornerstones, fundamental laws of the universe, about the main principles on which the cosmos is built. The ideological and scientific basis for setting this goal were the researches of the great thinkers, Russian cosmists of the 19th and 20th centuries, such as Berdyaev, Tsiolkovsky, Vernadsky, Chizhevsky, Kozyrev, Kazanachev, and others. The goal was achieved. Among the many topics raised during this communication was the question of the possibility of putting into the space environment of a so familiar to Earthlings attribute, like weapons. The answer was immediate. It was strict, absolutely unambiguous, not allowing any double interpretations. It is unacceptable to bring any weapons into space. You can never, under no circumstances or conditions, do this. If any means of influence, weapon system, intended for causing harm or death to any object or subject, will be placed in any area of outer space, then, in accordance with the fundamental principles of maintaining a harmonious world order, there will instantly be engaged the mechanism of elimination of not only this area, but also of a much larger volume of space. Thus, the universe, with maximum reliability, gets rid of its single, malignant, so to speak, cell of its boundlessly great organism. If people ever place weapons in near-Earth space, it will inevitably cease to exist, not just planet Earth, but also the entire solar system. I can't stress this enough, that both Soviet and Russian leadership has been consistent for decades, back in the day and now, firmly defending the principles of exclusively peaceful exploration of outer space. Peaceful people of planet Earth. There are significantly more of us than a handful of those who want to establish a cosmic dictatorship on Earth. Be vigilant, demand an absolute ban of the placement of weapons in outer space. Thank you.